Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. I am very excited today to interview somebody that actually has the same first name as my dad, ironically. He sent me this message and he said it took him 4 takes, which, I don't even know if I believe that, wink, wink. But honestly, he had such a wonderful accent. I'm very drawn, of course, being a Doyle is my last name, to the Irish the way of living and the Irish way of being. Our first Irish coach on the show, Dermot Butterly, aka the Celtic Coach, with his cup of tea. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Coach M. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I'm really digging that we're both in the waistcoat mode today. I'm a kid of the 80s, so, I love waistcoats.
Yes, so
Very
do
nice.
I. So shout out to Judy Murray, who gave me this beautiful Scottish tartan. I love it.
Yeah,
Love
very
it.
nice.
Absolutely love it. All right, so let's talk about AKA the Celtic Coach. Why do they call you that?
Oh, gosh. Well, I have to be honest. It was a whole branding thing, but this guy used to, one of my clients who back in the day of the wheel and pagers and CDs, bring back the 80s. He was joking one day and he called me the Celtic Coach. He said, here he comes, the Celtic Coach. And I was just known as, Dermot. Which, by the way, your dad's name, Dermot, in Irish is Diarmid, and it means to live a life without envy.
Ooh.
So now you know. Hopefully your dad just got up on the notch of even cooler dads. And so he started calling me the Celtic Coach. And it's just one of those things, like the tea drinking. It's not something I said, well, now I'm going to brand myself as the Celtic Coach that drinks tea. It was just something, like hair loss. It was natural. It just happened. I'm speaking from experience there too.
Of course. So, look, honestly, you've lived a very diverse life. I love the fact that you were a talk show host,
Yes.
for over a decade. And I love the fact that you work with coaches in helping them bring out the best in themselves, their fearless creativity, and of course, get paid coaching clients.
Yes, get
Serving,
paid.
selling, showing up and trying stuff. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about all of that and so much more. But the one thing I have to start with is your peace walk. So just so we're clear, the craziest thing that this gentleman has ever done is walk from LA to Washington, D.C., dressed as Gandhi to raise funds for a school in India. We have to start there because I think that in itself is it's a wonderful contribution to the planet. Tell me more about it.
I lived in Aspen, Colorado back in 1996. I won my green card through a lottery. And then I came to America and, traveled around America for a while. I ended up in Aspen, Colorado. And then in 2000, I moved to LA. And something very interesting happened. My whole life fell apart. You ever had a moment like that where your whole life just...
Yep.
Someone just pulls the rug and you're done. You're flat on your ground, on your back. I was going to say something, but... And this is a kid's show, I'm sure. And I'm flat on my back, and I had to start learning how to walk and kind of get my act together again. And I did this in LA. And so one of the things I thought, well, why don't I go to India? I mean, the Beatles did it, and find myself. So I went to India. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find myself. They had no mirrors. And and while I was there, I met a guy, very interesting Indian man. And he brought me to his home, and the state was called Sorrow, which I kind of thought, okay, this is not going well. And he said, we'd love to build a school here. And I thought, okay, well, I said, I don't have any, in India, if you're Western, it's like you're rich. I was like, I was not rich. I was completely broke. My whole life, it fell apart. I was not the person to be asking for money. And, my mother always said that poverty is an inconvenience, but not something to be ashamed of. Well, I was inconvenienced a lot back then. But anyway, I said, all right, well, let me see what I can do. And so fast forward, come back to LA. And one day in the shower, I got the idea, well, why don't I do a walk across America? And at that particular time, I was reading a lot of Gandhi, his philosophy, his teachings. I was reading a lot of stuff about his life. And then don't ask me, I wasn't drinking at the time, but I decided to put on the dhoti, which is the dress garb of Gandhi, with a walking stick, and walk from LA to Washington, D.C., and talk about Gandhi, talk about his life, do interviews. And I would do it with 2 pairs of runners, 2 pairs of socks, a couple of pairs of underwear. And, and that's what happened. And it took like 15 months to complete. I got sick. I mean, things fell apart. I wouldn't encourage people to do it now. But having said that, I think it was one of the greatest, we're talking about business and we're talking about leadership and the principles that go with that. And one of the things that I really struggled with in my life, I grew up in an alcoholic family and had a lot of crazy stuff happen there. And one of the things that I always struggled with was completing things, and I think in the world of business and I think in the world of leadership, the word leader literally means, it comes from the Greek, it literally means pathfinder, someone who creates or finds a path for others, leader. And I thought, if there's anything I'm going to finish in my life, I'm going to finish this fucking walk. And that was the one thing in my life that I did that it really changed a lot of things. It changed, my feeling of, boy, maybe I can do something different with my life. Because I was 30, my life had completely fallen apart. And, it tells you how much my life was falling apart because I'm walking across America dressed as Gandhi. Scaring all the folks that I came in contact with, But I think, in terms of business and leadership and principles, sticking with something. It's not always easy, but, the great Yogananda said, a smooth life is not always a victorious life. And so I think sometimes, you have to take out the finger and just, get it done. Like I say to the coaches, I said, look, the time for thinking is over. Just get it done and come to class next week and it better be done.
Yep.
And of course they come to class next week and whatever the thing they were afraid to do is done.
Yep.
There you go.
2 things come up for me in your opening story. One is one of my favorite Gandhi quotes. There go my people, I must follow them, for I am their leader. One thing that comes up, and I see a lot especially in the industry that I'm around, a lot of manufacturing shops, and this old traditional, not yell and tell, but I'm the boss. Even the word boss these days, and you're my subordinate, which both of those, I'm on a global mission to reframe both of those words. But this whole thing about following your people, listening, being curious, asking great questions, like that quote alone is really how I live my life. So what does that quote mean to you, considering you were Gandhi for 15 months?
Yeah.
But this whole thing about being in service.
Yeah.
Serving, not selling. Let's go there.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice segue, Coach M, because, one of the other things that Gandhi said was that leaders have a desire to serve, not to control. And Gandhi was such a great example of that because he didn't control anything. He was just insert. And I mean, when you read his biographies, I mean, you find out, he would clean people's toilets. He would teach them how to clean themselves. I mean, we only get the good stuff from, the movie, but boy, he went through some stuff. And for me, I didn't learn about service. I really didn't learn about service. Even on the walk, where I was talking to people about Gandhi and I did radio and TV interviews but I really didn't learn about service till I met a man called Steve Chandler. Have you ever heard of that guy? He's an amazing. He's here in the States. He's considered like the grandfather of coaching. He's the guy. And when I started my coaching journey quite a few years ago, I was selling. And I was telling everyone about coaching, and I was telling everyone about the benefits of coaching, and I was selling, telling. And when I met, and that doesn't work for coaching. It doesn't work for most things because Steve said to me, connection and conversation is what's going to build a business, Dermot. You can be tricky with your sales marketing techniques, but he says, what's going to sell a business is conversation and connection. And especially for any coaches watching, you want to build the business, it's got to be done through conversation and connection. And that to me is service. I often tell coaches that the old paradigm for building a business was selling. But the new paradigm, and this goes for business and leadership as well, the new paradigm is serving. Now, there's nothing wrong with serving and making money. Those two things go hand in hand. Steve would often say to me, Dermot, service is a well-paid coaching relationship. Well paid, you get paid for your service, but it's a coaching relationship. And when you can put those two things together, you can pretty much make money in any business. I think Steve Jobs really, he was very gifted, very creative, definitely a creator in terms of meta programs. But he really did care about putting a service out there that was going to really help people, and I think that really helped,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question even remotely.
Yeah, you did. No, you totally did. No, I like what you had to say. I mean, this thing about connection and conversation is how we are in service. And I love that from my sporting background. One of my young people that mentored me, he always said, Emma, always be in service to the sport. And then my businesses would flourish. And that was so true when it was like the sport was what we're there for, not to service the player or the parent, or it's almost like removing yourself one layer. So that actually really resonated with what you said. And the other thing I wanted to pick up on is this piece around accountability. Mm-hmm. Again, I go a lot into these companies and they're like, what do you mean you just ask curious questions and you get results?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Like
too.
how, what are you talking about, Emma? That's like not what we're paying you for.
Yes.
So I love this process, like of the essence of coaching, because no one ever leaves one of my coaching sessions without making a commitment, right? In terms of what they're going to act on. So I love that you said, hey, get it done. It's again, the whole 70% perfection principle.
Yeah.
I've lived my life by like that as well, because similar to you, completion was difficult for me until I realized just get it done. I mean, my book took 6 years, right? But it's here. It's here because I was like, there's no way I'm not completing it. And in the end, is it perfect? No. So let's go there next. Talk to me about perfection and, imposter syndrome. Maybe that comes into it a little bit. In some of your previous work, you talk about that because your whole thing is about, this being fearless. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about your clients and perfectionism versus taking action.
Yeah. By the way, I love your questions. They're really wonderful. I can talk about this stuff all day long. I had a client one time, very successful woman, ran a big corporation. And she came to the coaching session. She was referred to me, and she came to the session and she said, I can't clean my desk. And I'm thinking this lady's going to talk about, running the company and making $100,000 million, a month. And she said, I can't clean my desk. I thought, okay, this is new. And I said, well, what's getting in the way of you cleaning your desk? She said, I don't know. And I said to her, how long do you think it would take to clean your desk? She said, probably 15 minutes. And so I said, all right, go ahead and clean your desk, and I'll see you in 15 minutes. And I ended the Zoom call. Before she had a chance to say anything, I said, come back in 15 minutes. And I ended the Zoom call. She came back in 15 minutes. I said, did you clean the desk? She said, yeah. And that was that. Now, sometimes there's a conversation involved, but sometimes it's just about getting the thing done. Stu McLaren is a guy that I've studied under. And one of the things that, I don't think it's his quote, but basically he said, you don't have to get it perfect. Just get it started. Now, I really like that. It's one of the principles that I teach. I don't say that. I say show up and try stuff. Because the perfection principle, really all that is, it's a whole lot of perfectionist thinking. And people get lost in their thinking, myself included, especially when it comes to, should I go to the gym? Should I not go to the gym? I'm already thinking during the interview right now, should I go to the yoga? I don't really want to go to should I go to the yoga? I mean, I know it's good, but should I go? Well, the interview's till 11 o'clock and then I got to get to the... So we get lost in our thinking, So just get it started. I tell coaches all the time, they come in, how do I get clients? And I think that's a lousy question. Don't ever ask that question again. How do I get clients? They're like, well, what question should I ask, Dermot? Ask things like, who needs help? Who could I serve with a coaching conversation? Who's struggling right now that if I spent an hour with them, it would help them? Did you get into coaching to be a salesman, or did you get into coaching to help people? Every coach will tell you they got into coaching to help people. And so I think just getting people started in something, I took a program last year, and it was how to create memberships, which is something I teach because I think coaches, the only place that coaches find money, Emma, is in the dictionary. Most coaches are broke. Unless they're, a well-paid sports coach, but a lot of them are broke. They come out of school, they don't have any business building skills. And one of the things I've started teaching is memberships, because if you can have something at low cost and give a really high value group coaching, you can develop your coaching skills and you can provide a nice service for people. And it's a way to get in the game. And anytime I think that we can get leaders, business people or coaches, if we can just get them in the game, then that enthusiasm, that inspiration, inspiration, the inspirate, it means to the spirit within. That's what the word inspiration means. When you can connect somebody to that, then the service just automatically pours out of them. Mm. But if you have someone who's in the sell mindset and the lack mindset, which, bless our hearts, we're all stuck in that at times. I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough of that. But if you can get people out of their heads and into their heart, even for 5 minutes in a session, that will be worth more to them than anything else that you could do in a session. You have a great book, What Makes a Great Coach. What would you say is the one thing, Emma, that you think is like the one thing that makes a great coach? What would you say it is?
Energy.
Energy, bringing energy.
Yep. And the dance when you're partnering with the client or the coachee or not subordinate, your teammate, just call them a teammate.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
the energy that you bring. Yep, the
Yeah.
partnership. Yep,
Yeah.
definitely. And
Has
that's
to be a partnership.
just my book, they're not called chapters, they're called practices. And I know you really believe in this philosophy as well. It's a practice. We're working on ourselves continuously as a practice. So, it's practice 5 in the book is energy. It's the balance. There's the top 10 practices of the world's best coaches. The book's based on interviewing over 500 of the world's pretty amazing coaches. So thank you for asking me that question. And that's
Well,
where I want to go.
501.
Yeah, 500. Oh,
500
that's right.
now.
Yeah. Well, the book now came out September 21, so it's now I've got at least over probably 600 answers. That'll be volume 2.
There you
So,
go.
and I ask people, well, I'll go to my guiding question, which probably leads in nicely to where I want to go next, which is in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What do you think makes a great coach?
I had a coach one time, Michael Neal. He's an incredible coach. When I was being coached by him, he would often say to me, Dermot, coaching is loving disruption. Because people come to a coaching session. Now, they don't come to a coaching session because, Dermot, my life is wonderful. My relationships are wonderful. My finances are off the charts. Everything is wonderful. I just want to have a few coaching sessions to make it even more wonderful. They don't come to coaching. They come to coaching because either their life is a mess, or their life is good, they'd like it to be better, or there's something in their life that they keep bumping up against that they just have not been able to shift. And I think Michael was onto something, when he said that to me. And he said it to me often, because I was one of these coaches in the early days, and most coaches are like this. Confidence lower than the Colorado River. And if you've ever been on the Colorado River, it's pretty low right now. But that's a whole nother story. And he would say to me, Dermot, you've got to be willing to disrupt the client's world, but you've got to be willing to do it in a loving way. And I thought, oh, loving disruption. He called it loving disruption. And I think, as I'm thinking about your question, I think loving disruption, because when I was starting out, I did not have the confidence or the skill, mind you, or courage or anything like that to challenge a client. And there were many clients that didn't do the action steps. There were many clients that I kind of, as I was listening to them, I was like, boy, that just sounds like a lot of what coming from where. And I thought, but I never had the gusto or the courage to say, gosh, I might have to call BS on that, John, And so I think loving disruption would be, I'm kind of chuckling here at the John, because in your TED talk, you said there's more Johns in leadership in companies than there are women
Female
leaders.
CEOs. Yep.
Females. Yeah, it's like that. Anyway. Oh, yeah. So I think loving disruption, being willing to disrupt the client's world so that they can see something different, hear something different, experience something different, and ultimately do something different. Because if you don't do something differently, or you don't have an insight to where you see something different, it won't ever change.
Yeah.
As Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. But if you never see that change, it ain't going to happen, So loving disruption would be my best answer. It may change tomorrow, but today that's what it is.
Fantastic. I often say that confidence equals time plus experience. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned off air that you have studied under many great coaches. And you've already mentioned 3, Steve, Stu, and Michael on this podcast. One of my philosophies is that if we can short circuit the experience of somebody else, it's been there, done that, and learn from them and ask them what's been their greatest failure and and then we can add that to our coaching toolkit or not. We can give it a go, and if it works for us, great. So what would you say, what's one person that sticks out in your mind that has disrupted you as a coach?
It'd have to be Steve Chandler. I mean, my whole thing was selling. I'm an Irishman, got the gift of the gab, so I can sell. There's no problem there. But you see, when I started coaching and I started coaching people, selling didn't work. And I really wanted to help people. I really wanted to work with businesses. I wanted to work with leaders. My Celtic Coach radio show back in the day started, with as a men's show, just for men, and then it evolved from that. But I think Steve really taught me the value of moving from selling to serving. And when I really got that, now it wasn't easy. It was not easy for me. I'll be honest with you, it was not easy for me because I was coming from this place of neediness. I need clients. I had gone through school. I TA'd for the school for 2 years, and then I became a trainer. I was asked to be a trainer with the school for 5 years, the coaching school. And in all that time, I was just scraping by. And so I was constantly in the selling mode. And Steve, through a lot of work and effort, really helped me to serve people. Service, a well-paid coaching relationship. Because most people think of service, especially coaches, when they come to my school, they think of service as give free coaching, give. And then eventually, 6 months later, give up. And that doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. But most coaches come out of school, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And so they sell. They tell people about the benefits of coaching, which does nothing for anybody. I'm a big believer in, you mentioned it a little bit earlier about one of the ways you can serve people is give them an experience. Like I love your TED Talk because you're there with a tennis racket and a ball. You're talking about tennis, you're talking about sports, and you're talking about how, that can really change the world. I mean, look at Nelson Mandela, for God's sakes. He brought a whole country together with the sport, in leadership or in business. And again, Steve Jobs was great at this. But you can go down to the farmer's market there in Denver, and you'll see people giving people samples of food. They're giving people an experience of what they want you to have more of an experience. And I think this is one of the most, it's not talked about that much in sales and marketing because we have so many, tricky ways of getting a yes out of a no and, all this kind of stuff. But I think if you can give people an experience of what you're talking about, like what I say to the coaches, give people at least an hour of a free coaching. Now I say free coaching, there's no such thing as free coaching because in an hour session, they've got to look at things they don't want to look at. They've got to take some action they may not want to take. They may need to lean up against their comfort zone or their edge or even, get out of it. So there's no real free coaching. But if you can give people an experience of coaching, or you can give them an experience of your product or your service, whatever it is, you want people to. And I'm hopeful. I think most of the businesses really want to serve people in some way. It gets lost, through money or whatever. But I think for the most part, to me, there's no such thing as business. There's only people. And I think most people are good. And I think most people really want to help people. In America today, we're the largest nonprofit providers. Like there are more people that do more nonprofit and service work and volunteer work in America than anywhere else in the world. That says something. That really says something about the people,
Yep. Yeah, it does. And it, it's a great way to live your life. I mean, I love the market analogy, by the way.
Yes.
That's a really simple one because I do think Denver does it better than many other markets that I visit.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many times I've tasted like the chocolate chip cookie and gone, I have to have a pack of those, or even,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
protein bar that you think, oh, you never know which one to buy at the supermarket. Whereas at the markets, I think I love this concept of, and it's almost you're giving an experience because you really believe in the experience.
That's it.
And
That's it. That's
that's
it. You
that's a
got it.
key distinction as well.
Yeah. That's the key thing to the whole thing. That when you believe in something, you know, like coaches like, oh, I don't want to tell people about coaching because I don't want to come across as, needy and salesy. But if you really believe that you can help someone with coaching, then you don't come across as salesy. You come across as being of service to that person.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so you nailed it. That is the key, to believe in it. Now, it takes time. I didn't come out of school believing in coaching,
Yep.
but when I started paying for coaching, when I started getting good coaching from like really good coaches, then I really started valuing the service that I was providing. And I think you're hitting on something really important here. You've got to find a way to really value what service you're providing. And in that value, that will come across to people.
Yep.
You talk about like when I saw your TED Talks, like you could feel the passion, the enthusiasm, just the, hey, I want you guys to get this. What I'm saying is important and listen up. This is good stuff.
Mm,
You can feel that passion in your talk.
mm,
And that comes from there. That
does.
doesn't come from here,
Yep.
comes from the heart.
All right. Well, talking of loving disruption, what disruptive idea do you have that will change the coaching landscape in 2030?
Well, one of the things well, I mean, I think we've been talking about it the whole time, Coach M, which is, this like really stepping into service and stepping out of selling. I think that's going to change. I think I've seen it. I've seen how powerful that is. I've seen coaches come into my program and they got no confidence and, they're selling and they're needy and this is going to work. And when they really get the service and they really get that in their heart, the great Yogananda said, life should be chiefly service. I love that quote. When you really get that in your heart, everything shifted. Everything shifted for me. I started making money, which was nice, because I struggled for 4 years. I spent all my savings and started looking at other people's money. They were like, Dermot, you might want to give up this coaching and, go get a job somewhere. And I was like, I really believed in what eventually I really believed. I didn't believe in it at the start, but I wanted it, And so I think service, Emma, I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but I think service is what's going to change the landscape of coaching and business and leadership, because I read a lot of biographies, and every biography that I've ever read, whether it was Nelson Mandela, St. Francis, St. Augustine, Steve Jobs, Nelson, all these people, they all talk about service. Every book, it's some form of service and leadership. And those two things have always been talked together as they go hand in hand. Service and leadership goes hand in hand.
Mm.
And so I think service with leadership, I think that's what's I don't know if it's going to change anything, because I'm a big fan of Gandhi's quote of like, forget about changing the world, just change yourself, and that'll change.
Those around you.
Yogananda said, change yourself and you'll change thousands.
Yeah.
And I think, you see that in your TED Talk. A lot of people watch your TED Talk and something in them shifts. And I don't think that we don't have to be Tony Robbins leaders. We don't have to change the whole world, because that seems to me too big. But I think if we can change one person's life, like I had a client that he was a real estate person, guy, and very successful, and selling. And I started talking to him about heart-based serving, which he laughed his head off when I first talked about it. But now his whole business is serving. And the difference in his business now is he's actually enjoying it. And believe it or not, he's making a lot more money in his business. But the most important thing is, because money was not a big thing to him, was he's having fun. Because I always ask people, when I go into a company or something, I say, why'd you start this company? And they always tell me, and I bet they tell you the same thing. Oh, I wanted to help people, and I wanted to create something that could be a legacy, and I wanted to have fun, I wanted to make a business out of what I love to do. And then somewhere along the way that, changes. And so bringing people back to that's, I think if you can do that as a coach or a leader or a business manager, I think if you can just do a little bit of that and simple questions like, what do you value most about being a leader? What do you value most about this business that you've created? What are some of the benefits that you see this business is providing for other people? What about this business makes your heart sing? What about this business that you've toiled over for years? What about it rang your bell or still does ring your bell? I think questions like that, they're called value-based questions in coaching, because connect people to their values. And when you do that, values are from the heart, beliefs are from the head. And I think as much as we can connect people to values in leadership, in business, in coaching, just human beings.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good day's work.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is. It's how you get aligned. It's easier to make fearless decisions and take inspired action. So, it's a wonderful thing. All right. Let's round off this episode. What does your heart say what's that one last message you want to leave us with?
Is this idea of you don't have to get it perfect, just get it started. Because there's no person in the world that doesn't have some kind of something that they would love to do, but is the dream killer. And I think if you can just get it started, I think you've got a good chance. Forget about getting it right. Forget about getting your business perfect. Just get whatever it is in your business, just get it going, get it started. And, I believe that every idea comes with its own manual. So when you get an idea and you take the first step that intuitively or just practically, you take that first step, guess what? You'll be given the next step. And guess what? You'll be given the next step. But you got to get it started. Could you imagine playing tennis by sitting on the bench? No, you got to get in the game. If you want to play the game, you got to grab the tennis racket and ball and get in the game. Even if you play terribly, it doesn't matter. Get in the game.
Yeah. And on that note, tennis is a great metaphor as well, in that you need a partner to do it. And you can't play tennis by yourself. I mean, the brick wall's a good partner up to a certain point, but being able to partner, and I know both you and I believe in not only being great coaches ourselves, but in being coached ourselves.
Yes.
So to be able to bring out the best. So with that in mind, we are pathfinders as leaders. We learn from our mentors by loving disruption and believing in the spirit within. Take action, get it started, be fearless. Check out clubfearlessforcoaches.com, all the show notes to learn more about this fascinating gentleman, otherwise known as Dermot Butterly, aka the Celtic Coach. It's been an honor and a pleasure spending 1 hour of my life that I will never get back. And I'm extremely grateful for you being a coach.
I feel the same way, Coach M. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all the people listening out there. I hope you get something of value from this conversation, and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps even one last request from me is, with each of those value-based questions, I invite you to pause the episode and answer them. Give it a go. And of course, enjoy your coaching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye for now.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.